Can I ask you about Silicon? I was in. You talked to the tech bosses there and the tech people. And there seems to be a real fear that what you would do with tech is you would hand it over to Elon Musk and say, "You sort it out."
No, I have great respect for Elon. Look, I saw that rocket ship come in yesterday and go right back to where it took off, to the gantry, I guess they call it. And I said, "What the hell?" I was on a phone, probably politics, and the television's on, and I'm seeing this big thing where the white paint was burned off it from that 1,000 heat, and I see this big massive tube that's 10 stories 20 stories tall come down. I told the person on the phone, "Wait a minute, I'm seeing something I don't believe it." And I said, "Wait a minute." I forgot the guy was on the phone. He waited for a half hour, and I watched that come down. And I watched it come down between those big levers, and I said, and it looked to me like I was going to crash. It was coming in hot, and all of a sudden, boom! You see the motor, the fire kick in, and I said, "That's the most incredible thing." I said, "Can Russia do that?" "Nope." I said, "Can the United States do it?" "Nope. He's the only one that can do it." And I said,
you now want to put him in charge of deregulation,
not deregulation,
cutting wasteful spending,
cutting
every single,
which would include deregulation. No, I've got to approve it.
Every president comes in and talks about cutting wasteful spending.
Oh, there's tremendous work.
Give me an example of something that will get rid of government spending.
Well, let me give you an example. When I came into government, I was the first thing signing it. Why? Because there's a lot of fat. He said, "I'm not signing. It's got to have a 3 on it." Anyway, long story short, some of you have heard this. I got it down to, because first week they cut off 400 million. He said, "I'll cut." I met with the head of Boeing. Wait, because first week they cut off 400 million. He said, "I'll cut." I met with the head of Boeing. Wait, Dennis. I said, "Have a 3. 5.7 is too much. 5.7 billion. He said, "The most I'll take off is $400 million. I said, "Well, that's not bad for one conversation." So he got it down. I said, "Nope, I'm not accepting." He took off. Anyway, 2 months went by, 3 months went by. I thought we blew the deal, and I was okay with me. I didn't care. But we should have a new Air Force One. When we see these planes from Saudi Arabia, different countries, brand new, and ours is like 32 years old, and it's a very different plane. It's a much smaller plane, the whole thing. The United States should have the best plane, I will tell you. Not for me. Let me just finish.
Would you?
So he said, he calls up after like 2-3 months. I didn't call him, which is the best way to buy something. Don't call back. And he goes, "Wonder what the hell he wants." That's a good way to negotiate, let me tell you. So calls back, said, "Sir, 3,999,99999, 1 penny below $4 billion." So I said, "You got yourself a deal." Then I said to him, "Let me ask you a question. So you had a deal at 5.7, and in a period of 2 months, I got 1.7 billion off. That means you're going to make $1.7 billion profit on an airplane. Did nobody get with you?" "Well, not really, sir. This is the price." And they said, "We'll take it." And I said, and then I learned, that was my first experience, from that. But then I things like that. There is so much waste. So I'm getting, think of this, the exact same plane for 1.7 billion less. Except I have a better paint job. A different color, red, white, and blue is beautiful. And if you look at every contract, that's one contract, and relatively small compared to most. Think of it. You save 1.7 billion because you negotiate. Every deal is like that. We're building ships that are costing 2-3 times more.
Give me an example of
there's tremendous fraud and abuse in our country. And if you could cut it, you would have a surplus without even going into growth. But growth, we will grow. We're going to bring companies and jobs in at levels that you've never seen. And you would never be able to do it because you're not a believer in tariffs. The only way, let me tell you, the only way you can do it is of tariffs. It's the only way you can do it.
Can we come back to one thing on that? Deal making. You look out across this room, there's some big businesses, but a lot of small ones.
A lot of
By the
big
way,
ones.
you've
See a
given
couple of
us
things.
examples of things where you've negotiated
Yeah.
with the heads of big businesses.
Right.
Give you an example, when you put the tariffs on China, much smaller than you're planning to do at the moment, when you put them on, Apple came a difference for them.
I did.
That's much harder for small business people. Isn't the problem with the way that you do these kind of deals? You're bound to deal with the big companies. It's the small companies that get hit by all these different things and can't find exceptions.
Oh, we have exceptions. No, we had an exception rule. I gave Apple an exception. Tim Cook is a great business.
Apple is not a small company. And
No.
Please
No,
don't give it
but
to
here's
me.
what
The
happened.
question is about small business.
Yes, but I
What
would
will
make
you
it.
do for them?
No, but we have a very talented group of people. Bob Lighthizer did a very good job. We had great people. We had central casting. These are a group of people. We made exceptions. In the case of Apple, they needed an exception. You know why? Because of Samsung. He came to me and he said, Samsung makes a product similar to ours and other things. And because they're in South Korea, they don't have the tariffs. Because we're in China, we have the tariffs. I said, you happen to be right. You're not going to be able to compete. I said, look, I'm going to give you a 1 year, but I want you to start building your factories in this country, whether it's Texas or any other place, anywhere in the country. And he said, what does that mean? I said, you have everything in China. I want you to move to our country. And he started doing that. And he built a factory, a big one in Texas. He built another one. And this was all a process. It was all happening. But I did give him an exception. He said, as soon as he said Samsung, I said, how is that product compared to yours? He said, it's a good product. I said, then you really can't compete. You can't have a 20, 25 or a 50% tariff and compete, right? Yeah, I'm giving you an exception. And I did it for many companies.
But
We had some, but the ultimate
businesses come and see.
I know, but
that was the question.
But we do it for small businesses too. We do it for small business. I'll give you another man who I didn't know, but he came to me. He was at a meeting, and he built kitchen cabinets. And he was, pretty big in the business. That's all he did is build kitchen cabinets. He said, sir, and South Korea are building kitchen cabinets for 1/3 of what I can make them. I said, what's the quality? They're not as good, but they're good enough. I can't compete. I have 2,000 people that work for me. I'm going out of business. I put a 25% tariff still on kitchen cabinets. I saw the guy 3 days ago. He said, the man that saw you about kitchen cabinets, you saved my company when you did the tariff, and you saved thousands of jobs. And my company is now doing very well when you did the tariff, and you saved thousands of jobs. And my company is now doing very well. And he started to cry. And this guy hasn't cried too much, I will tell you. He said, you saved my company. There's nobody that could have done that.
Maybe I can ask you then about something else.
Yeah.
Business people here in this room, business people, capital markets, they all like the rule of law. They like certainty. The Chinese, who you mentioned, other dictators,
right?
They don't like it when things go wrong. They like it when things go wrong in America. If you look at the events of January 2021, it showed to many people America's democracy was unruly and violent. Only 3 weeks to go to the election. Will you commit now to respecting and encouraging a peaceful transfer?
You had a peaceful transfer of power.
You had a peaceful transfer of power. You had a peaceful. Come on, President Trump. You had a peaceful transfer of power compared with Venezuela, but it was by far the transfer of power for a long time.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because this is what they like to do. This is what they like to do. It's very interesting.
The question, President Trump, is would you respect the decision?
When I found out about this interview, I did a little check. He's a man that has not been a big Trump fan over the years. So I had a choice. Do I do this interview? I did it. But do I do this interview, or do I disappoint a lot of people? Because I know a lot of people in the audience. But his view is very different than mine. Let me just say,
I'm asking
March, peacefully and patriotically. These were people. If you think an election is crooked, and I do, 100%. If you think the day protests, you take a look at the Democrats, they protested 2016. They're still protesting it. Nobody talks about them. But if we protest, we want to have honest elections. Last election was honest? Well, no, do you think it was honest?
Times it went to court, the courts.
No, it didn't go. They went to court, and the courts all said, you don't have standing. Nobody had standing. Frankly, after an election for a judge, but they all said you don't. Nobody ever had standing. But the facts, if you take a look, I'd show you hundreds of pages of facts. People went there, and I'll tell you what, they never show that. The primary scene in Washington was hundreds of thousands, the largest group of people I've ever spoken before, and I've spoken, and it was love and peace. And some people went to the Capitol, and a lot of strange things happened there. A lot of strange things with people being waved into the Capitol by police, screaming, "Go in," with it, that never got into trouble. You know, I don't want to mention names, but you know who they are. A lot of strange things happened, but you had a peaceful, very peaceful. I left that I was supposed to leave. I went to Florida, and you had a very peaceful transfer. This was not and I'll tell you what, those people that did go down, which was a fraction of the people that went to Washington. I mean, you're talking about a very, very small, because hundreds of thousands of people, and I don't know what you had, 500, 600, 700 people, Capitol. But those people, that was not one of those people had a gun. Nobody was killed except Abbott. She was killed. She was killed. She was shot in the head by a policeman that he did was horrible.
President Trump.
So I think we should be allowed to disagree on that. And obviously, you see by the reaction in this room, there's a lot of other people.
Let's return to one other big subject you bring up repeatedly.